to spill our spaghetti and meatballs everywhere.
Yep.
Tear everything down because we're not ready for anything out there.
I'm not sure if you were even next to me.
I don't remember anything. I almost ran into a tree.
Greetings, one and all. Welcome to another episode of the N.
Oh?
Why? Why? No,
Okay.
you why?
Why or C? I don't know.
Exclamation point.
It's the NOYC podcast. And as we wrap up our September episodes talking about finding fixes. So before I start, let me say that when I first thought about this subject matter, I was thinking that this is something that strikes a chord with me personally because I spent the majority of my life trying to fix one thing or another on my own. To be totally honest with you guys, I really thought that I was fixing problems in my life. Well, I was sort of kinda. You see, all of my fixes were before I came to know Jesus as my Lord and Savior, were very temporary fixes and very real problems.
Yeah.
You see, I was never a me type of person. I was definitely a you can do it type of person, and I believe that I could fix problems with very worldly solutions. Okay. I guess deep in my heart, I knew that the fixes that the world offered, like that. I guess deep in my heart. Yes, I need to fix that.
I think you just reversed.
What happened this time? That's not the same
Yeah.
song. I knew that. Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. I guess deep in my heart, I knew that the fixes that the world could offer me were not long-term solutions, but I stuck with them regardless. Fast forward one short year later, and I am now in the position that knowing that the best fixes to all my problems was God.
Yep.
So one might ask, is God truly the Swiss Army knife to all of our problems? And the answer, quite frankly, is yes. You see, God is the God of all things. There isn't a single grain of sand or a single blade of grass or even a single star in the night sky that God didn't create. So who else better to be the master fixer than God? Once I began to see God for the fix to all my problems, it became like consolidating all my problems, fears, and worries into one place. It's kind of like those commercials you see, you know, take
Consolidate
all
your debt.
Exactly, consolidate your debt. You know, yes, we will basically contact everyone you owe money, and we're going to charge you more money.
We'll put you in one lump sum.
Exactly, one lump sum.
I feel like Jamie's giving a God infomercial here. I'm uncomfortable.
Very Billy Mays right now.
Okay, so in life in general, we accumulate things that need fixing at an alarming rate. And if we try to do it ourselves, we quickly begin to drown in everything that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've all been there to a point where we feel like every time we fix one thing, two more things that need fixing arise. Without God, that becomes a never-ending battle that we simply cannot win.
Either you get more things that need to be fixed, or that thing just becomes really worse because
Yes,
you're just like avoiding it, or you put the duct tape on it. Like recently, CJ and Rachel had bees in their house.
Ooh.
Yeah, and they had to have somebody come out.
She finally has a life story to share, and you're going to say it.
I know,
Why
right?
am I not surprised?
You told us.
Well, I was just thinking about like if you would have just duct taped over the
No,
hole.
he did.
Yeah.
He put duct tape on the hole to keep the bees inside, so that way when he went to treat them outside, they wouldn't come angry inside.
Okay.
But when he put the duct tape on, the only thing keeping the bees, because there was a nest this big,
Oh.
and so the only thing keeping them out was paint. They had ate all the drywall.
Wow.
So the duct tape in the end wasn't enough because like
they threw it.
it got bigger
Yeah, the
because he ended
solution
up.
made more problems.
Yeah, because like once he took off the duct tape, the hole just got bigger and bigger. So now we have a hole this big,
Oh.
and now we have to have cardboard and duct tape.
But are the bees gone?
The bees are gone. The bees are gone. We're good.
All right,
We're good.
okay,
We're good.
yes,
We're good.
Yes.
I feel like, though, like, so two things. One, like back to the beginning, and to pick on Kevin a little bit. One, spiritually, optimism can be an Achilles heel of a Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being an optimistic person. Now, I've never been accused
We know.
of that. But like that, there's two sides of the coin. Like you can be a person who just thinks everything's horrible and sulks through life because the sky's falling, like everything's a tragedy. That's also not healthy.
Yes.
But
Right.
it's also equally unhealthy to think you can handle it all
Yes.
and that everything's going to be fine and you can do it attitude, like you said.
Right, yeah.
Because ultimately you don't really need God or you don't allow him to put you in the place where you need him.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So that's unhealthy. But then you were thinking like this is, so you said Swiss Army knife.
Yes.
I've been watching MacGyver.
That's one of my favorite all-time shows.
Yeah, it's the new ones. Have you seen the new ones? Okay.
I'm old school.
I know. So I'm watching the MacGyver, and like that's his whole gimmick. I gather that
he is
basically
a
no matter
Swiss
what's
Army
going,
knife,
no
yeah.
matter the
Right.
problem, no matter what's going on, he has a Swiss Army knife and he can fix. He can pull from any resource he sees or feels or knows is there, like literally anything, from
Gum.
paper clips to gum to crazy stuff. He can pull from anything and make a solution.
Right. It has become known as. I'm just gonna MacGyver it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
right, yeah,
but what you're
yeah.
saying, which is really fascinating, God is the ultimate MacGyver.
Exactly,
Like,
yeah,
he
yeah, right,
really
yeah.
is. But what's even more fascinating is like MacGyver's the real one. The TV show, like that God.
The
You guys
example.
all three looked at me like,
We're trying to figure out what you mean.
MacGyver's a real person. He has limited resources.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Which is what makes the show fascinating because his resources are limited. God, however, has unlimited resources.
Right, yeah.
So like not only is he the Swiss Army knife, but like you said, he has every atom, every molecule, every creation.
And he doesn't have to hope it works.
No,
Right,
he
yeah,
knows
yeah,
he's
yeah,
always known how to
exactly,
put
yeah.
it all together and make it work. So why in the world are we trying to put Band-Aids on our problems when
Why are
God's
we
Duct
like,
tape on your
MacGyver
bees.
it?
yeah, why in the
yeah.
world are we trying to do his job? Yeah, duct tape on the beehole. Why are we doing that? Like, I don't know. And it seems so silly when you're talking like this,
Yeah.
but like we all do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
have that, you know.
I can MacGyver it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the biggest difference is watching the old school MacGyver, because I don't know how the new one is.
Yeah.
But anyway, like it'll be a situation where he needs like a wire. So he's like getting gum or
Right.
like a pastor like, hey, chew on this for a minute.
Right.
And he's doing, okay, then he puts it, I want to just his gum. But then he like puts it all together and everything. And like you said, he hopes it works.
Right.
Where with God, God is like, well, here's the wire you
Right.
need.
Yeah.
The exact wire you
Yep.
need, the perfect length, the perfect
So
everything.
the word, I love this. I use this every time I get a chance. So the word provision
Okay.
in the Bible. So God is a God of provision. We
Yeah.
find that over and over and over, you know, think of so many stories. So God is the God of provision. And what that means is it's a compound word. Kevin's the smartest among us and he still goes to school.
We left as early as we
That's
could.
right, absolutely.
I'm
Rachel
back
is
in
not.
first and
Yeah,
second
Rachel's
grade
not. Rachel's starting over. But provision, it's a compound word. A compound word is two words put together to make a word. So what are the two words? Pro, which means before, and vision, which means sight. So what is God? God is the God who sees before.
Yeah.
So like you're coming on the situation, you got a problem in your life, and God's like, here's a wire. I saw this problem coming. I packed this for
Exactly.
you.
Yes,
That's
yes,
God.
yes,
And
yes.
yet what do? We come to the situation, we're like, oh,
I don't need a wire.
I need to find a wire, or like we're trying to
Exactly.
make a wire out of gum, or like we're trying.
Right,
and God's
yes.
like, I packed for
Well,
that.
how many
I
times do
planned."
we like? He's like, "Here's a wire." I'm like, "I don't need a wire."
Yeah.
Why would that be possibly be
Why would-
possible
yeah,
right
how-
now?
How would that be helpful, God?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's kind of like at camp, you were like, why do you need an ironing board? You know?
You would bring that up. You would, yes. Kevin had provision about wrinkly clothes.
Exactly. Because I knew besides me, someone else would
right.
need an ironing board. Okay. So once we turn to God and become saved, we start our personal journey of salvation with God, guiding us along the way. As we walk with God, He will take care of any and all problems that are simply just too much for us to handle. All that God requires from us is to love Him above all else and to love our fellow man. Now that
Did you have?
Is that you or me?
You don't know who
noise?
clicked it?
Do you have something?
No.
What of
Okay,
these
well, I'll
things?
do it.
Okay.
I'll have something for you.
Oh,
So,
good,
okay.
good.
maybe that was you that made that.
I don't have
So
anything.
which takes more faith? Making a solution when you have problems in your life, or trusting that God planned for that problem? Because I think we look at we talked about this in Sunday school, ironically. I think we look at people who face a trial in their life and they like puff up their chest and bend and
Right.
grin and bear it. I said that right.
Sure.
Grin and bear it, and they're tough guy. They're the tough saint who's gonna get through it. And we look at them and we're like,
You got this.
they are the
Yeah,
super
they are
saint.
trying
They have
so
got
hard,
it.
yeah.
But really,
Wait, you
it's
said they're the what?
They're the super saint. Like,
Like
they're the one who's
we-
got it
we
all.
look at
we
them.
look at them that way. Like, man,
okay.
they're not even.
Like they're unmovable.
They're unmovable. They're
Okay.
gonna. But
All right.
really, that what takes more faith is to come humbly before God and say, you know what, God, I can't do this.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to do this, and not in words only, not doing that and then falling apart, but like truly placing that problem to Him
Right.
Yep.
and having faith enough to believe He's got this. That takes more faith But a lot of times in church, it's the opposite that we
Yeah.
applaud or think highly of.
Well, it's because of our flesh wants pride. And
Yeah.
so, like,
Yes.
in our brains, even though we know it's pride, we're like, oh, that's good because they're, like, unmovable. They look like they're stone.
Right.
Like, they don't.
So is it too simplistic to add for ourselves? Because I don't know what anyone at this table. I'm the first, not the latter. Like I would assume. So would it not be logical to think whenever I approach a problem in my life and I'm like, okay, I could do X, Y, and Z, or I could do LMNOP or QRS. I could do these things. When I'm doing that, that should be a red flag in my mind. I've bypassed provision.
Yes.
I've bypassed faith because I'm trying to do this when
Right.
God said He
Perfect.
will do this.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like that's something we all need to do, but I think that should be something we should be on the alert for.
Yes.
We should be
Yes.
prepared to.
If you're working really hard to figure out a solution, you're doing
Yeah.
it wrong.
Exactly. But I think also, like, part of it is that, like, just because, you know, we're sinful flesh, okay? So, like, there's, like, a small problem. And we go, I'm going to get this to God.
Yeah.
Okay? And God's like, I got you.
Yeah.
And He fixes the problem. And you're like, oh, thank you, God, for fixing that problem. Okay? But the more serious the problem
We
becomes,
start one cheek at it,
you
pushing
know
them
what I
off
mean?
the
It's like,
stool. Yeah.
well, you know, God did fix this,
Yeah.
and this.
Yeah.
But this is kind of serious. So, you know,
I'll handle this, guy. I'll handle this. It's okay.
I got this one.
It's
You know
either
what I
we
mean?
don't, or we're just afraid of what the answer is going to be. So
Yeah.
we're trying to put it in our own hands so
Yeah.
that we don't have to deal with the answer God wants to give us.
Exactly, exactly. Like a favorite saying I like to say is like, God always answers. Like there's not a time when God doesn't answer. It's just sometimes we're like, oh, so that's the answer, God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God always gives what we need, not always what we want.
Exactly.
But the faith part that comes in is trusting that He knows best and giving you what you need, not what you want.
Yep.
Exactly.
It doesn't take faith when you just get what you want. Like the spoiled brat who gets everything they ever want, that is fake. That's not, you know what I mean?
There's no faith in it.
Exactly.
Right,
but when you
right.
trust God, you say, you know what, you are good, and I believe your decisions are good. And so if you don't give me what I want, I still believe you're good.
Yep.
I think we can all look back to a time when we were, you know, younger children and our parents denied us something, you know, and we as a child or even as a young teen or a teenager, we don't understand why is, you know what I mean? Why
Right.
can't I go to this party, Mom? Like, you know what I mean? And then, you know, 10 years later, we look back at it and go,
That makes sense. Yep.
And so
Yeah.
again, like back to that, what did Mom have? Provision.
Provision.
She
Yes,
saw
exactly.
problems at that party that
Yeah.
she knew if you went, like she could see ahead. And so not only does God provide what you need in advance, but He can also protect you from what you need protected from in advance.
Exactly.
You know, He can
Exactly,
see
yes.
the pitfalls and the holes you're going to step in and take you around them. And you're like, but I wanted to go straight. And He's like, no, you need to turn left.
yeah.
And I think a lot of times we get frustrated when we have a problem and we want to try to solve it. So we're like, okay, we can't solve it, so we give it to God. But then God doesn't solve it in the time that we think
Yeah.
He should.
Right, right.
We
Well,
get upset. We're like, well, this should have been already handled. If I was doing it, I would have already had this handled. You know what I mean?
yeah,
We think
yeah,
like
yeah.
we're better than that. You know
Exactly.
what I mean?
I
Like,
could have fixed this by now, God.
Yeah.
I gave it to you, and
Yeah.
you know what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Which you know to me is a big problem that
Yeah.
people,
Yes.
non-believers have.
Yes.
You know, like what's taking them?
Finding fixes takes time.
It does. It does.
But the funny thing is, it doesn't take time for God because He's known the solution from the beginning.
And He knows the perfect timing of
The,
this.
the,
Exactly,
ti- the,
yes.
the length of time is for our benefit because we're learning something. You know that trial is proving our faith, and so that time is valuable. It's an ingredient that we need for that fix.
Yep.
But we just see it as we just need the fix.
Yep.
Yeah.
When
Yep.
all along the time is part of the fix.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
Exactly. I think the weight, like you said, builds our faith because if God just constantly gave us instantly,
Right.
we have no faith.
Right.
You know
Well,
what I
and
mean?
He would
It's
just be a
like,
genie. He'd be like, all right, God, problem.
Yep.
Yep,
Fix
solved.
it.
You know what I mean?
And then
Yes.
every time we'd snap faster and faster.
Right?
Right? Come on, now.
Like, come on,
That's
come
not,
on,
yeah,
come on.
that's not how.
Do you think that it's becoming more and more like that? I obviously have not lived a long life. Do you think that's becoming more prevalent in today's world just because of
It's
the
an
consumption
instant,
thing?
Well, and we're in an instant gratification culture,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
microwave popcorn, like
Well,
everything.
think about even like your social medias are getting even shorter term. Like your TikToks are what, like 6 seconds long, like something.
Finally, for the first time in human history, public service announcement.
Wow.
The attention span of a human has now become shorter than that of a goldfish.
Ooh.
The
I believe
attention
that.
See, I was talking.
I'm like, I know where you're gonna go.
I think like the goldfish is 7 seconds. The
Actually-
adult human is like 6 seconds or
Yeah.
5 seconds. So literally we have a shorter attention span than a goldfish. Now that's obvious in TikTok and social media.
Right.
But apply that spiritually.
Yeah.
No wonder we're snapping
Yeah,
our fingers
exactly.
and
Quickly,
expecting
quickly.
fixes now.
Yeah.
You know
And
what
while
I
you're
mean?
reading the Bible and you're like, I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
Why am I not getting it?
Got a problem.
Like,
No.
It's like, have you guys seen that video of the kid? I don't know what country he's from, but he's doing this to the book. Trying to get the knowledge into his head. It's like right before a test. He's like doing this.
But also, I think that a lot of, I'm not gonna say that, a lot of Christians, it's like the bigger the problem becomes, the more of the Bible we read.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. So, small problem. Oh, I'm just gonna read. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just the right. Okay. That's enough
Yeah.
for this small problem. The problem becomes bigger, and we're reading chapters.
So let's take that further. Would you say that God, when we do that, we treat God as the spare tire,
Right.
when instead God should be AAA? Like,
Yeah.
where He has all
Yeah.
all the cars available and all the tow trucks, and all
Yes.
the fixes.
Exactly.
So what I mean is, at all times, remain faithful to your membership.
Yeah.
I don't mean that the way, but what I'm
Right.
saying is
Yeah.
remain faithful to Him.
Yes.
Not a spare tire where you're just plugging Him in as needed for problems.
Right.
No, enjoy His presence at all times and saturate yourself and crave His righteousness. You know what I mean?
Yep. Well, I think that's where the whole thing of having contentness
Yeah.
is. Like that's where you get that. Is you're not grabbing Him when you need Him. You have Him constantly there, and then it's like, oh, okay. It's like if I was driving down the road and my tire blew, like you were talking about, I'd have to, call Jacob, call my dad, call CJ, call someone
Right.
to come help. But if like Jacob was in the car with me, or Dad was in the car with me, or CJ's in the car with me, I don't have to
Right.
wait on that. He's
Because you have
already
the
there.
fix with you.
I already
Yeah,
have the fix
exactly.
with me.
Yeah.
Yep, that's
and
exactly
so
right.
that's how you're supposed to be with God, and that's where you get that. Like, I'm not worried if I get in the car with my dad, Jacob, CJ. I'm not worried that something's gonna go wrong because I know he'll
Have
fix
them.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
well,
You know what I mean?
Sticking with the whole
MacGyver's
broken
here.
down-
MacGyver's already
Your
here.
dad is probably the closest MacGyver.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
CJ's like trailer park MacGyver, but Tom is like the real MacGyver. Like, that's, CJ's not in the room, so I can't wait for you to listen to this, CJ. You're probably gonna fast forward to the end.
Yeah, right.
I think
He'll just
sticking
skip
with
that part.
There'll be like a black space here, right?
technical difficulty. That's right. But sticking with the car theme, I think that the world is fix-a-flat.
Yeah.
Okay, and God is a brand new
Right.
tire,
Shiny, whitewashed wheel
yeah,
tire
exactly.
with
White
silver rims.
It's just Lightning McQueen.
Okay. We're
Because I don't
referencing
know
a
if you
lot
have
here.
ever used Fix-a-Flat before.
No.
You know what I mean? Okay. So it's like this foam that
Yeah.
you put in. Okay, so you don't know how it works. But even after you put the Fix-a-Flat in, like you've done everything, there's still a part of you that's like, it could go flat
I should
again.
deal with that, yeah,
you-
yeah.
You know what I mean? And then there are people who drive Fix-a-Flat around in their car or even on a spare tire. You know, where it clearly tells you.
And I think that goes back to what we've been talking about this month. I think a lot of so really it's almost like levels. There are some Christians who just refuse to admit they have a problem. There's no spiritual flaws here.
Yeah.
The next level would be, okay, I see I have issues. I see I have spiritual problems that need to be addressed, but I'm going to try to fix them myself. But then there are those who, I would say even beyond that is kind of what you're saying. There are people who I see I have a spiritual problem. I'm going to try to apply this fix, but it's not a permanent fix. And that's what we were talking about the last episode, one of the episodes about having a permanent solution. That plucking the eye, cutting the hand. It's an extreme measure to make sure this doesn't happen again. And so that would be the replacing the tires, the extreme making sure this doesn't go flat again.
Yeah.
Right.
And so a lot of Christians spiritually lack that commitment to a permanent solution.
Yeah.
Because it's expensive.
It is.
Well, it's also not as fast.
and it also hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're changing
my
tires
nub.
this year.
I'm like, I thought you were trying to
Try
get
to change it with one hand and one eye. Kevin's like, I don't know what just happened.
know, he's like, I'm sure.
You guys hijacked my show. This is my
That's a
episode.
car reference.
It's good.
Okay, so now loving God and loving our fellow man may seem too heavy of a price for some people, and God knows that. So why God expects us to love him and others, he is such a loving God that he knows we will fail him a lot.
Yep.
And that's where Jesus comes in, because Jesus died for all of our sins, past, present, and future. God is the ultimate fixer to any problem that we may face in life, and he wants us to always turn to him.
Yep.
To put this in simpler terms, God can fix anything, no matter how big or small. Imagine going to a car dealership when you're hungry. Sure, they can fix your car, but you can't get groceries here. And God, not only does he have the groceries that you need, but he can also have the 4 new tires for your car that you didn't even know you needed.
Yep.
Okay? So I think at times people do so many things to get their fixes, from drinking to eating to video games to social media or to whatever makes their problems disappear. For a while, the person may think they fixed the problem. Only God can fix things forever.
Yep.
I think one thing that I've been meditating on this week and thinking about, I was actually listening to another podcast. Whenever we find ourselves becoming frustrated with things in this life, that roots back to discontentment in Christ, which is kind of what you were saying. But what you're saying is, so like I get that flat tire. If I become frustrated over that flat tire, the reason is I've tried to make that car my satisfaction, and that car let me down.
Yes.
And so that's kind of what you're saying here is, when we're expecting to be happy because of social media and suddenly there's annoying comments on there and I'm frustrated with social media.
Exactly. Yeah.
All of a sudden, that is a cue to me. My frustration is telling me that I've placed satisfaction in social media and not where it should be in Jesus.
Yeah.
And that goes for anything. Complaining is the sure tell sign of idolatry. And so that means that when you're complaining, that's saying that you lack satisfaction in Jesus.
Yep.
Those should be big red flags to us. And like that applies to the fix theme that we're talking about here. Jesus is the only solution, but he's also the only satisfaction.
Yes.
Right.
And to seek either elsewhere, it's going to be problematic.
Well, it's just like what your dad was preaching about this morning about having your faith in somebody, in Christians, in preachers, in churches themselves, and they will fall flat because
You're
they're sinful.
setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, because if you're basing your Christianity, your happiness on your church, you're doing it wrong because they're sinful, they're flawed, and the only person that's not is Jesus.
Right.
So you have to go to
so
him.
back to the car. Like if you get in the car and you just bought it, it's a clunker. You bought it from the used lot, and your satisfaction is in Jesus, and you're driving along and get a flat tire. Well, you're going to already have expected that flat tire because it is a clunker.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with the church. I don't mean to compare the church to a
but like
clunker.
if somebody comes up
it's
to you,
the same thing.
if somebody comes to
expect
you and be rude to you, or if they're, however, you're like, oh, that's
what I would expect from a person
you know
who
what?
has
You
a
did
flesh.
that.
It surprised me.
Yeah.
And I remember a friend, well, he's still alive. I haven't spoken to him in many years. But anyway.
It's a very good friend.
he's my best friend.
So it's funny because I remember one instance where someone had did something that, they knew was wrong to him. And they're like, I'm sorry. And his response was, I know you are. Okay. And I was like, wow, like that was like mind blowing. You know what I mean? But that's really the way the world is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when people or things disappoint us, we should expect them.
Yep.
If it wasn't rooted in God,
Yep.
okay, we should expect at some point, like no matter how long it's going good, okay, it's really just setting us up for a bigger disappointment.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the funny thing is, the one place that will never let us down, we act as if we expect it to let us down.
Yeah.
Jesus is the only thing that doesn't let us down ever, and he can't, or he wouldn't be who he is anymore. And yet, just like the faith thing, we want to take back control because we think he's going to let us down.
Right.
And yet all the other things who we know are of this world, the people we know are of this world, they are absolutely 100% going to let us down. And we're like, no, I can trust them. It'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
I love me. I'll just get a chip
Yeah.
and ice cream. It always ends with ice cream.
It always ends with ice cream.
We are so upside down as people. Like we really have such a skewed view. But kind of like the message this morning, there's so much more joy and contentment when I expect nothing less than sinful people to be sinful.
Yeah.
And where my joy and satisfaction is in Jesus, and I love those sinful people, but I expect them to be sinful.
Yep.
There's satisfaction in that. You're skipping over that pothole. You know what I mean? Avoiding that hurt, and it's a better way to live.
It is. Was like the whole car thing. Like I can, I had my car for roughly a year. Everything with me happened within the past year. But anyway, I've had my car, and my previous car was a 2006, 2007. Okay, so it had got to the point where I was like, okay, so summer I work at a school. So summer I was thinking like I need to get 4 new tires, on my car so I can be ready for school next year. So I went to get the 4 new tires, and they told me that the cradle that holds my engine was rusting. And the guy's like, I'm surprised you made it here.
I'm worried about tires.
Exactly, right.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, how much would that cost? And it was like almost $2,000.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, so let's put the tires thing on hold because
Yeah.
that is
Right.
important. So really what I'm doing is I'm putting more money into a car, okay, that really I'm putting my faith in all these things, not once that I think like, I'm going to give this to God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's going to provide for me. Okay. And this is just stay tuned. Okay. So, eventually, to make a really long story short, like one problem was another problem, my windshield wiper stopped working. And I went to the guy to fix it, and he's like, "It's actually your whole computer module that shot, so I can fix your windshield wiper, but it's the module, okay?" And that's like $2,500.
My goodness.
And he goes, "Or you could just buy a new car." And I'm thinking, like, well, of course he's gonna say that. You work at a car dealership, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But I realized, like, this is becoming too much. Okay, so I ended up buying a new car. Okay, so I'm thinking like, okay, I now have a new car. Okay, I fixed the problem myself. I went, made money, bought a new car. I don't have to worry about the cradle to the engine anymore. I don't have to worry about the windshield wipers. Okay, less than like maybe 5 months later, the fuel pump on a new car I bought started going out. Okay, very frustrating. I'm frustrated, and I'm just like at my wit's end. Okay, and as part of my testimony was, I'm driving my car coming to men's Bible study, and my car starts acting up, okay? And I'm like, maybe I should just turn back home. It's not going to make it today. I'll figure something. I will figure something out. So as I start to turn my car around, I get this thought like, so who do I trust more, my car or God? Okay, and to me, that was like a huge turning point to me. I'm like, you know what? I trust God. Okay, so I'm going to turn this car around again, and I'm going to go to the men's Bible study. And to make this even shorter, is that the solution to getting my car fixed was here. You know what I mean? So because I made that simple decision to say I trust God more than the car, it led me to the solution that I needed. And I feel as though, if I would have just trusted God from the beginning, I could have saved a lot of money, headache, heartache, time, frustration, and all that.
That's a great illustration of faith, and I feel like that's one that we don't see a lot of times. I don't even feel like most of us even get to that point. But I was thinking of you. I don't know if you remember this or not, but there's the story of.
Someone's over here. Oh.
I know, right? Say bees again. Maybe she'll wake up. There's a story of Jewish history records Moses at the Red Sea. So you got the world's biggest army at your back door, and you got the world's reddest ocean.
The biggest battle
the reddest
So you're between a rock and a hard place, impossible. And so we know the story, unfortunately, but it's recorded in Jewish history. It's recorded that Moses had so much faith that he believed at that point God could have lifted the mountain out of their way, or God could have picked Israel up and floated them out of there. Like he had so much, he didn't know what the solution was. He had so much faith, though, that he knew God had a solution, though he didn't know the solution. And that's what you're saying is, regardless of the situation, our job is not to find a fix. Our job is to trust the God who has the fix, even when we can't see a fix.
Exactly.
And that's where faith comes in. But then I was also thinking, we're just hijacking all over the place, Kevin.
It's
I apologize.
okay.
So you were talking about, I love this. I love this. So you were talking about your clunker car, and how it came to a point where you had to realize pouring more money into it just wasn't wise. Like it wasn't worth it.
Yes.
That's what you call a totaled car, right? It's just not worth fixing anymore.
Right.
This is the spiritual application here. Each of us has a flesh. And what is the flesh? It's our clunker car.
Right.
It's what we come with default. But the problem is a lot of Christians want to fix their flesh when really the Bible tells us we're to crucify the flesh. It's not worth keeping around anymore. And so we just came out of a series, Dead to Me. That was the whole point of the series, is keeping around dead things. Not that I'm going to bring that back up, but here we go. Keeping around dead things that should be disposed of. That's the clunker car. But a lot of people think I can find satisfaction, I can find joy and contentment and happiness if I keep eating this ice cream, if I keep buying these clothes, if I keep getting on social media, if I take this filter on my picture, if I like just all these fixes. And it's like, no, the flesh is totaled. It's not worth investing in anymore. We have to get rid of it so we can get that new body in Christ, that new creation, which is the Kia that you're talking, the car you're talking about. I didn't say what brand it was. The car you're talking about now. But that's a great illustration of salvation, really. But I feel like a lot of us are trying to fix the wrong thing. There's some things not worth fixing. That's the moral of the story. There's some things just not worth fixing.
So like starve your body, feed your spirit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Or as Paul says, murder the flesh.
I don't want to
Either
scare anyone
way.
off.
I do. Okay.
Were you here for the last series?
That's fair. That's fair.
Do you have anything to add?
You guys have done. You've covered it all.
Covered it all.
You've covered it
I feel
all.
like she's like Simon Cowell over there. Like she's just like
She's judging all of us?
Says nothing, and then I didn't say scowl. I said Simon Cowell.
but he
You were
scowls. He
scowling.
scowls.
Oh, well, you were
Yeah, he
scowling.
scowls. He
So you're the
scowls.
Aldi's version. Michael Scowl. Michael. Simon. What is it? Who are you? He's a
Simon.
goose named horse. Okay.
So Peter.
People were
me
tuning
too,
in for the
every
first time. Like, this
episode.
is the strangest place I've ever been.
Should we get help for that?
Because we would have had a whole episode for no Ole.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
I do
It
my
was a
part.
close call.
I do my part.
But yeah.
So really, like I just said, the whole goal is that we know, we should know anyway, that our flesh is the totaled car. It's broken. There is no saving our flesh. So instead of trying to save something that can't be fixed, why not invest in something that can be fixed? Like our flesh, the days of our flesh were numbered since the day we were born.
Yep.
I mean, if you think about it, since you were born, your body has been slowly, though it grows, the end result is it's going to fail you.
Yeah.
It's going to die.
Yep.
Well, kind of like the pastor preached this morning, all flesh is cursed.
Right, yeah.
If you're a person in flesh, that has been cursed. It's of this earth, and God himself has cursed it.
Right. Right, exactly.
Cursed. That's what he's done.
It sounded like you were spraying whipped cream.
The cherry on top. There we are. No. But the flesh is cursed, and yet so many of us are trying to go against God and trying to fix up what God's cursed. And it's like, no, and pour into the Spirit. Invest
Right.
in the Spirit who is going to live eternally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Why invest in something that's going to die when you can choose to invest in something
right.
that's going to last forever?
Yeah.
God likes Ready Whip. That's what we learned today.
That's
what we learned.
Ole.
But not the generic.
No,
Generic.
actually, you
It
know
comes
what?
out
I
watery
don't mind
sometimes.
generic.
I like
all
Cool
these. Cool Whip's okay.
I like to
Just
eat out
not
of the shop.
Miracle Whip. Don't do
No
that.
Miracle Whip. Don't
That
do
would be a
that.
mistake.
Don't do that on your desserts. That's bad.
I'm surprised they don't have spray Miracle Whip.
They do.
I mean, you have like the squeezy upside down bottle
That's
thing.
not the same. It doesn't go.
It doesn't. Yeah,
No, it
it's
doesn't make a
fair.
sound. It just ruins the sandwich.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Miracle Whip's good
That's
for one thing.
But
it's the
don't put
trash.
your whipped cream on your sandwiches either.
I would do that.
Cream
Like
on
a ham
I would
sandwich. You
put
don't
whipped
do
cream on
ham.
anything.
Like bologna and whipped cream
I would.
sandwich.
I would eat whipped cream on a rubber shoe. I love whipped cream.
You don't like shoes.
That's why I eat them. I don't,
That's why you're always scared.
I don't have to wear them if you've digested them. I don't know. What a strange place this is.
I know, yeah.
Who did this?
Who
Okay.
allows this?
So,
Kevin, please get us out of here.
okay. Well, with that, I think we'll wrap this one up. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully you learned a thing or two.
Hopefully you're still there.
Yes, hopefully you're still there. So with that, I'm going to say bye.
Bye.